Good morning. It's Sunday morning. I hope you're ready to go to church. I hope you're on your way to church. I wish I was on my way to church. I'm late. I I slept too long. I got up too late. I mismanaged my time. Like any other American Christian, I ate breakfast instead of spending time in fasting and prayer. The flesh is strong, my friends. Remember, Peter couldn't stay awake on the night of Jesus' betrayal. But I will get to church on time. I don't have any duties except to go and play the fiddle and sing a song or two. I do have the duty by commandment from Hebrews chapter 10 to attend and assemble with my brethren, and I will. Velda is under the weather. Pray for her. She can't make it this morning. She's hoping she can make it by tonight. The heat is oppressive and it's hard for her to breathe. Of course, emphysema is a taskmaster. Uh, Just a word about sleep. I was making my excuse for not getting up until less than an hour ago. In chapter 6, Proverbs 6, beginning in verse 9, it says, "How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands. A little folding of the hands to sleep, so shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man." Also, the Proverbs 20, verse 13, "Love not sleep, lest thou come to poverty. Open thine eyes, and thou shalt be satisfied with bread." Sound advice from the word of the Lord. Hear the word of the Lord. Now, I don't know how far we'll get because I'm going to cut it off pretty quick, but we're toward the end of chapter 23 of Isaiah. I will not do any of the explanations I usually do as we recap. You can listen to yesterday's program and get all the recap you need. Chapter 23, I will just read the verses beginning in verse 1, the burden of Tyre. "Howl, ye ships of Tarshish, for it is laid waste, so that there is no house, no entering in. From the land of Chittim it is revealed to them. Be still, ye inhabitants of the isle, thou whom the merchants of Zidon that pass over the sea have replenished. And by great waters the seed of Sihor, the harvest of the river is her revenue, and she is the mart of nations. Be thou ashamed, O Zidon, for the sea hath spoken, even the strength of the sea, saying, I travail not, nor bring forth children, neither do I nourish up young men, nor bring up virgins. As at the report concerning Egypt, so shall they be sorely pained at the report of Tyre. Pass ye over to Tarshish. Howl, ye inhabitants of the isle. Is this your joyous city, whose antiquity is of ancient days? Her own feet shall carry her afar off to sojourn. Who hath taken this counsel against Tyre, the crowning city, whose merchants are princes, whose traffickers are the honorable of the earth? The Lord of hosts hath purposed it, to stain the pride of all glory, to bring into contempt all the honorable of the earth. Good morning, Pastor Susie. Pass through thy land as a river, O daughter of Tarshish. There is no more strength. He stretched out his hand over the sea, he shook the kingdoms. The Lord hath given a commandment against the merchant city to destroy the strongholds thereof. And he said, Thou shalt no more rejoice, O thou oppressed virgin, daughter of Zidon. Arise, pass over to Chittim, and there also shalt thou have no rest. Behold, the land of the Chaldeans. This people was not till the Assyrian founded it for them that dwell in the wilderness. And they set up the towers thereof, and they raised up the palaces thereof. And he brought it to ruin. Verse 14, how, ye ships of Tarshish, the great merchants from the western Mediterranean, for your strength is laid waste, as explained in these several days prior to this, where I explained about the commerce of the Mediterranean during the early Iron Age. How, ye ships of Tarshish, for your strength is laid waste. And it shall come to pass, not, my brain is not working right. I meant at the end of the Bronze Age. How, ye ships of Tarshish, for your strength is laid waste. And their strength was the sailing ships and the commerce on the Mediterranean. And it shall come to pass in that day that Tyre shall be forgotten 70 years. These are the same 70 years of Jeremiah, which I will show you in just a second. That Tyre shall be forgotten 70 years, according to the days of one king. And after the end of 70 years, Tyre shall sing as a harlot. There's a lot in that verse. Okay, Tyre shall be forgotten 70 years. This invasion of the Assyrians in 715, 713, 712 BC will be forgotten. They'll come off of their island. Good morning, Charles. Their island fortress at Tyre, and then they move back into the city. They're on the coast. They'll reopen the harbor. They will be relatively without any pain for over 100 years, and they'll just go back to business as usual. But Nebuchadnezzar's armies will come, and when they destroy Judah, they're gonna really destroy Tyre and Zidon and destroy their commerce, and they will have soldiers there. They won't be able to do anything about that city that's out there. They will finally give up Tyre. But it takes them a long time to come back, just like it would take a long time for the production in Egypt to come back and the commerce on the Mediterranean to kick back up again. But there would be 70 years when Nebuchadnezzar comes. 70 years of oppression. In chapter 25 of Jeremiah, we see Jeremiah describing that the invasion of Nebuchadnezzar will touch Tyre also. And it says in verse 8, because ye have not listened to my words, Jeremiah 25:8, because you have not heard my words, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, saith the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land and against the inhabitants thereof and against all these nations round about. You see that this prophecy is to Judah, but he's talking about all the nations round about. Tyre and Zidon in modern day Lebanon and Syria border Israel. So all the nations round about. And will utterly destroy them and make them an astonishment and a hissing and a perpetual desolation. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness and the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride and the sound of the millstones and the light of the candle, and the whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment. And these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. What does he mean by these nations? We skip over here to chapter 27. I love to tell the story. These nations. I I've lost my place. I was in chapter 25. So I think I have to go to chapter 27. Um, yes, when he talks about these nations, Jeremiah is prophesying during the days of good King Josiah, the last good king. This would have been around 610 BC, about 100 years after Isaiah wrote. Verse 27, beginning verse 1, in the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word unto Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, thus saith the Lord to me, make thee bonds and yokes, and put them upon thy neck, and send them to the king of Edom, to the king of Moab. These are the nations that surround, the nations round about. To the king of the Ammonites, and to the king of Tyrus, and to the king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers which came to Jerusalem unto Zedekiah the king of Judah. And command them to say unto their masters, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, thus shall ye say unto your masters, I have made the earth, the man and the beast that are upon the ground, by my great power, and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. So if you think your rulers are wicked, and we go through times of hard political stress, the people that rule are the people that God decides are the ones that are going to rule for whatever his reasons are. You may not like that, but it's a fact. I have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. If it seemed good to me, I did it. And you've got to be convinced in your life, friend, that whatever God does will do you the most good long term and give him the most glory, long and short term. And now I've given all these lands, the lands round about Judah, I've given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and the beasts of the field have I given also unto him to serve him, and all nations shall serve him, and his son's sons, until the very time of his land come. And that would happen in 539 BC when the Medes and the Persians took over and executed King Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's nephew. That was the end of his kingdom. Those are the 70 years that Daniel talks about. For 70 years. Daniel's 70-year prophecy, he said that they would be in captivity for 70 years. And during this time, even though Nebuchadnezzar was not able to conquer the rich people, and finally they were on the island of Tyre, the isle, they came back. But since Nebuchadnezzar had destroyed all the lands, he had destroyed the Philistines, their production, their economy. He had destroyed the economy of Turkey, which was Anatolia, Syria, Zidon, Tyre, Philistia, Gaza, Egypt. He brought Egypt prostrate. There was no commerce because King Nebuchadnezzar didn't buy, he stole, he took by conquest. So for 70 years, their merchants began to sing like a whore. You know, whatever the traffic would bear, all of their goodly things, all of their great merchandise, all of what they were doing is they were begging in the streets, trying to sell anything they had to make $1 to buy a crust of bread. And it kept getting better, but the best it could get during those 70 years were the wages of a whore. Take an heart, verse 16. Go about the city, thou harlot that has been forgotten. Take a look at yourself. Make sweet melody. Sing many songs that thou mayest remember. And that thou mayest be remembered. This is a sad song. The richest spot on the med, and they have to beg for a customer. They have to beg for a customer like a prostitute. They have to barter and negotiate for a crust of bread, for a glass of wine. And it shall come to pass in that day that Tyre shall be forgotten 70 years according to the days of one king. This will come to pass somewhere between 590 and 583 BC. Because during Nebuchadnezzar's campaign against Judah, as we discovered during our study of Jeremiah, he also invaded Israel by sea in galleys from the Mediterranean. He would have landed those men in or around Tyre or Zidon because they were the best harbors. So when they landed, they took over. The rich people and the ruling class, they might have ran off to that island where Nebuchadnezzar couldn't get him. But they were ruined. All they had was what they had when they came out of their stronghold. When Nebuchadnezzar left, there wasn't any business left because Nebuchadnezzar owned all the business. He'd just taken it by conquest. It's like I've been preaching for years. A nation built on commerce cannot stand. It must be built on ideals and principles of a higher order to survive. I would say that the British have been especially good at that, regardless of their flaws. They're consistently flawed, but they're consistently British. Rule Britannia. No, I'm not saying, give it all back to the Brits. Believe me, the end of colonialism is a good thing. But that's what the Lord is talking about here. And it shall come to pass in that day that Tyre shall be forgotten 70 years, according to the days of one king. And after the end of 70 years, shall Tyre sing as an harlot. The news shall be as the song of a harlot, in other words. Take a harp and go about the city, thou harlot that has been forgotten, and make sweet melody and sing many songs that thou mayest be remembered. And that's what happened when Nebuchadnezzar left. They made commerce with whatever they had. They probably traded some gold. They probably built some idols. They probably hauled bricks. They probably stole grain shipments from other places. Italy was producing grain. Armenia was producing grain. What we call the Balkans today were producing grain and trading in the Aegean. All the way up into modern day Russia and Ukraine. Thing about it is it wasn't the same as before. They weren't the queen of the ball anymore. They're the whore, the tramp. It's a terrible metaphor, and I'm not using this to disregard women in any way. I'm just saying this is a picture that God paints through the prophet. And says, take a harp and go about the city, thou harlot that has been forgotten, and make sweet melodies, sing many songs, that thou mayest be remembered. People forgot all about you, Tyre. Go out there and make some noise. Let people know you're alive. And these happened during and after the days of Nebuchadnezzar. And it shall come to pass at the end of the 70 years, the Lord shall visit Tyre, and she shall turn to her hire, and she shall commit fornication with all the kingdoms upon the face of all the earth. As soon as Nebuchadnezzar was gone, and the Persians came and were unable to reduce Tyre, because they pulled the same trick. They went out to their island. Now, Tyre survived the Assyrians. Tyre of Isaiah's day, they survived the Babylonians of Jeremiah's day. They survived the Medes and the Persians of Daniel's day. But they could not survive Alexander the Great. But they had a couple of 100 years in there that that they came back to life. And they commit fornication with all the kingdoms of the world upon the face of the earth, because they weren't calling the shots anymore. They had to start all over. They had the harbors, the northern harbor and the Egyptian harbor, Tyre and Zidon. They had their harbors. They had their cities. They still had much of their wealth, which they hid on that island fortress of Tyre. But they had to go around begging for business again. Man, it's like a salesman. It's like a salesman, and I speak from experience, that moves to a new company. You know, you got to start all over. You got to get new clients. You got to make new friends. You got to let people know where you are and where you're doing business. That's what Tyre had to do. Yeah, we used to be a queen. Now we're a whore. But we're doing a good business at it. So y'all keep coming. And her merchandise and her hire shall be holiness to the Lord. What? This is the verse that I believe speaks to the kingdom age when Jesus rules on the earth. I think it's instructive when the woman comes, the alien comes to Jesus, says, heal my daughter. And it says that she was a Syro-Phoenician. Syro, Syria, Phoenician, the land of the Philistines, the land of the Phoenicians along the Mediterranean coast. Syro-Phoenician, that means that she lived on the Mediterranean in Syria, the Syrian coast, which would be Zidon. And Tyre is in Lebanon today, but it would have been there by the border. Even then, they're not far apart. When Jesus said that she's a Syro-Phoenician, they said she was a Syro-Phoenician. And he says, well, go, woman. He says, he says, your faith has according to your faith, so be it unto thee. And her daughter was healed that very hour. I believe it's a picture of Jesus healing the whole area of the Syro-Phoenicians, what is now Lebanon and home of Hezbollah, what is now Syria and home of the Iranian death squads, and all these things, you know. Even though they have a bandit king right now who we don't know what he's going to do. He used to be sworn to taking down Israel and taking down Iran because he is a Sunni Muslim. He used to be an Al-Qaeda commander. But what I'm saying is this verse 18 looks to a time in the restoration that there will be some faithful people out of Tyre and Zidon. Remember, the widow that took care of Elijah was from Zarephath, and that's in the Phoenician area, you see. The widow of Zarepta. And her merchandise and her hire shall be holiness to the Lord. There's going to come a day when they will have righteousness that he will give to them. And it shall not be treasured nor laid up. They're not going to have an island to go out to and carry their wealth to. They won't need to, because they'll live in peace in a peaceable kingdom. We've talked much about that peaceable kingdom in the book of Isaiah. As a matter of fact, that is where the phrase comes from, the peaceable kingdom, the kingdom of the Lord. It shall not be treasured nor laid up, for her merchandise shall be for them that dwell before the Lord. Who's dwelling before the Lord? It's in the kingdom. They're dwelling before the Lord. They're in Judah. They're dwelling before the Lord. They're the righteous in all the other nations outside the kingdom that were not slaughtered at the Battle of Armageddon. They're going to be the trade center once again to feed, and instead of hoarding her treasure, their merchandise is going to be for them that dwell before the Lord. And why? To eat sufficiently and for durable clothing. In the kingdom age, when Jesus sits on the throne of his father David, when Jerusalem will be the capital of the world, where Judah will be the kingdom of the world, the millennial kingdom, and the law shall go forth from Mount Zion. Jesus shall sit on the throne of his father David. He will rule with a rod of iron for 1,000 years. During this time, this great harlot, Tyre, whose entire purpose in the world was to trade in merchandise. It says that you're not going to lay up treasure for yourself anymore, the Lord says, but you're going to use your merchandise and your trading and your commerce for the benefit of those who dwell before the Lord in the kingdom and in the countries, the ones who dwell before the Lord and worship Christ. Why? To eat sufficiently and for durable clothing. You're not going to blow it on wine and gold and all this stuff that you did before. And we're going to use your talents, Tyre and Sidon. We're going to use your skill in commerce and trade and your great harbors. We're going to use that to feed and clothe the people of the Lord in the peaceable kingdom. We have finished chapter 23, and I still think I can get to church on time. The Lord be with you.